Meeting to order. Ask everyone to rise for the Lord's Prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Ramirez.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armand Mercia.
Here.
9 present.
Okay. Before we begin the meeting, I would like to recognize Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask my colleagues for a moment of silence with darkened chambers for 3 people who have passed away. First, Francis Maloney, a loving and devoted husband, father, grandfather, a proud father of 5 sons, Patrick, Joseph, Kevin, Peter Maloney, who works in the City of Lowell Engineering Department, and Richard Maloney, who works for the Lowell School Department. Also for Michael Prestapino, Jr., a loving and devoted husband, father, son of Michael Prestapino, Sr., employed by the City of Lowell. And last, Henry Champagne, a loving and devoted husband and uncle to many nephews and nieces, a very highly decorated veteran of World War II, a Pearl Harbor survivor. Henry Champagne was the epitome of what a veteran is. Class, was a gentleman. He attended many, many veterans' dedications, and in my eyes, and many other people's eyes, he was a hero. He was there. He was thrusted into the Second World War without any warning at all. May he rest in peace. May Michael rest in peace. And may Francis Maloney rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, want to talk about Henry Champagne a little bit and say that he was my hero personally. He knew that. We were all very, very proud of Henry Champagne. I had the honor of making an exception to make a Veterans Corner for him while he was alive because I felt he deserved it, being a Pearl Harbor survivor. He was up in age and he attended all veterans celebrations, and I was especially proud of him going into the schools and talking to our numerous children numerous times. He enjoyed jumping at the chance to speak to the children about what a veteran is and what Pearl Harbor was all about and the sacrifices that the veterans made. He was a recipient of many, many, many numerous awards, 10 Bronze Stars, Victory Medals, National Defense Medals, Good Conduct Medals, you name it, he got it. We loved this man. He will be truly missed. Thank you, Mr. Champagne, World War II Navy veteran, Pearl Harbor survivor. Thank you for instilling your knowledge and the support of our veterans into our children. Thank you very much, and we will miss you, Henry. Thank you.
May they rest in peace. Before we begin the agenda this evening, we have some special guests with us this evening, visitors from Bryansk State Technical University in Russia. And to introduce our guests, that we have Mr. Vladimir Avrachenkov, Dr. Vladimir Avrachenkov, Vice Rector, and Dr. Vitaly Skibarin, Vice Director. Welcome, and to introduce them, we're going to have Elaine Crandall from Middlesex Community College come forward.
City Manager, Councilman, thank you for having us this evening. Middlesex Community College, over the last 5 years or so, has developed a relationship with the state Technical University of Bryansk, region of Russia. Bryansk is 6 hours south of Moscow, to give you a little geography. Over the years, Vladimir Avchenkov has visited Lowell, and through his visitations, he proposed an exchange program with his university and Middlesex Community College. Last April, Professor Christopher Brennan and myself went to Russia to sign the agreement. And while there, we visited the mayor's office. This was a wonderful event, and before we left, we had a wonderful meeting at the mayor's office with some of the councilmen. And I have a newspaper article that I will leave with our mayor and some other beautiful pictures of the region. But they came out to me and gave me this proclamation with an invitation that they would be very happy that you would consider that Lowell become a sister city with this city in Russia. And the cities are very similar, that they're a little bit larger, 450,000 people, but it's an industrial city. They manufacture steel and so forth. And we are a city very similar, and the architecture is beautiful. They're a little older than we are, the year 985, I believe. So I was given this document to present to you, Mayor, and it's Dear Mayor, let me present my compliments to the Town Hall of Lowell and to you personally. The Dean of Middlesex Community College of Massachusetts, Professor Brennan, and the Director of Historic Homes, Elaine Crandall, have recently visited Bryansk and at the invitation of the Bryansk State Technical University. The school signed an agreement of cooperation in April '06. In the course of the meeting with the representatives of the local management there, have been discussed the possibilities of cooperation between Middlesex Community College of Massachusetts and high schools of the higher education schools of Bryansk. Both parties have expressed their interest in the cooperation between the cities. You need to know that April we were there, and now they were here. They're here for 2 weeks, and the first leg of our exchange program. I ask you kindly to give this opportunity a thought. The forms and ways of cooperation could be spoken over Bryansk and in Lowell. I would appreciate if you would keep me informed about your decision, Head of City of Bryansk, Igor Alekin.
Okay, thank you.
Уважаемые господа,
Dear ladies and gentlemen,
от имени мэра города Брянска мы хотели бы выразить свои пожелания укрепления контактов в области образования, культуры и в будущем в области экономики, если вы сочтете это возможным.
I would like to say we hope we will have a good relationship with your city, with Middlesex Community College, and I hope we will have good relationship between our two cities.
Мы уже 5 лет сотрудничаем с Милицейским колледжем и видим, что у нас много общего, и это сотрудничество приносит много пользы нашим коллективам. Надеюсь, что эти контакты могут быть расширены в будущем.
We have been working with Middlesex Community College for the past 5 years, and I think this communication and relationship is very important for you and for us and for you. So I hope in the future we will have more partnership between us.
Желаем вам самых больших успехов в вашей деятельности.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for giving us this time on behalf of our President, Dr. Carol Cowling.
We too want to thank Middlesex Community College for your efforts in bringing these folks into town. We know we have many events planned over the coming next 10 days or so, and so we look forward to visiting with you at the various events Middlesex has scheduled, and we want to commend you for your efforts. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Mr. Mayor, do you plan on entertaining a motion to bring in to have Verdansk, Russia as a sister city?
I think we can, we'll do that. We'll read through the materials here, and if that's the wish of the council, would certainly be honored to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think the next item on our agenda then is the more mundane matter of acceptance of the minutes from
So moved.
October 31st meeting. Motion to accept by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item is communication from the city manager, responses to council motions and requests. Any questions, Councilor Rita Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received a communication in our packet regarding a particular discussion that we had last week at a subcommittee meeting regarding the Kakavas family, and Tom Bellegarde sent a communication that the family is requesting the small plaza behind the North Common to be dedicated to their family. This area abuts the Transfiguration Church off of Clark Street. If this site meets with the approval of this council and a vote by the council, the office of the Commissioner Bellegarde will work with Judge Kakavas to coordinate site improvements for the late fall and early spring. The Kakavas family was informed that the improvement costs include the stone engraving, landscaping materials, and other related expenses that would be incurred by the family themselves, and I believe they understand that. So through this motion, I'd like to have my colleague to the right, Councilor Mercier, who was the maker of the motion, speak a little bit more on this particular subject.
Could we have an action? I will
Yeah.
second the motion for.
Why don't we
suspension of the rules.
suspend the rules just in case there's any
Yeah.
formal action? Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Milanazzo, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The rules are suspended for the purpose of considering this item. Councilor Armin Mercier.
Thank you very much. I did hear from the family, and there is a concern about someone in the family that is very ill, and they would like to expedite this. They know, and I've informed them that it has to be approved by the council, sent to the law department, brought in as a formal vote, which we would like to do this evening, to send it to the law department to expedite this. It's a great family, and they really would love to have it done when everybody is around. And that's the purpose of suspension of the rules.
Okay. Motion to refer this matter to
Move
the
this
Law
to the
Department for
yes.
preparation of proper vote by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Matters referred to the Law Department to come back for formal action.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is an order of taking for the acquisition of 391 Pawtucket Street, also known as the Red Cross Building. The current owner of this property, I serve on the board of directors of, and even though it's a nonprofit and there is I have no financial interest in this, I've been advised that I should not participate in this vote, so I'm going to step down from the podium, and Councilor Milanazzo is going to chair the meeting for this vote.
I'd like to entertain a motion to waive the full reading of the order of
moved.
taking. Motion by Counsel Caulfield, second by Counsel Broderick. In City Council, order of taking to take by eminent domain certain parcels of land in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes, to wit, to dedicate a portion as parkland in furtherance of Lowell's national parks, Riverwalk, and to also acquire a portion to provide affordable housing unit. Second reading by title. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, City of Lowell, and City Council, order of taking to take by eminent domain certain parcels of land in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes, to wit, to dedicate a portion as parkland in furtherance of Lowell's national parks, Riverwalk, and to also acquire a portion to provide affordable housing units in City Council November 7th, read twice and adopted. What's the wish of the City Council?
Move approval.
Motion's been made, seconded.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin. Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a vote authorizing the city manager to execute an amended development plan for the Julian Steel project. Vote, also, this goes on for some 20-plus pages. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor
moved.
Ramirez, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor of waiving the full reading, say aye. Any opposed? That motion is approved. Second reading by title, a vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City Council of the City of Lowell to approve the amended development plan for the rebuilding the Julian Steel Public Housing Development in Lowell. Questions, Council Rita Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, in a nutshell, what is the difference between, what are we amending here? Is it a lengthy amount of things we're amending, or is it, Matt? What are we amending here?
We hear from Assistant City Manager, Mr. Coggins is here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the council. These are all technical amendments to the development plan and the disposition agreements, all of which have been before this body before. To give you an example, the last time one of the development plans was approved, there was language that said the city will appropriate $1 million towards the demolition. It now says the city has appropriated $1 million towards demolition, and demolition is complete.
Okay, good.
You have an outline, there are some minor changes to the affordable housing covenants language in it. These are all technical changes. There are no substantive changes before you. Our commitment remains the same to replicate 220 units of housing.
Yes.
I can tell you that as of today, we have actually created 231 units, 140 of which count towards the 220. And we're still striving to do the rest of them. But nothing has changed that this council hasn't had before them.
Well, I was wondering, through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Matt, if you could give us an update as to what's going on there. On a daily basis, we don't know what's happening there, and I just would like an update from you. The planning department keeps in contact with the Julian Steel site, do we not?
We do. We work with Residents First
Okay.
Development Corporation. Mr. Dennis Connors is here. He can
Okay.
certainly answer specific questions. But I can tell you that in Zone 1, there are 10 units under agreement out of the 14 lots that are available. And out of Zone 2, which is yet to be constructed, they have already taken reservations for 50% of those units. So construction is proceeding. If you had an opportunity to go by the site or see the
Yes.
houses that are up,
Yes,
it's
I
really
have.
starting to materialize as it had been envisioned now some 6 years ago when the legislation was signed.
So can you keep us updated as
Absolutely.
to what's
We'll
going
do,
on there?
a formal response through the manager's office to give you a status report as to where we are
Yes.
today.
I'd like to know that.
Absolutely, and then we will do regular updates for you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lowell delegation, Senator Panagiotakis, Representative Nangle, Murphy, and Golden, along with this council, Mr. Manager, took immense criticism. And it was probably one of the best votes I ever made to demolish the Julian Steel housing. Many of the units were not fit for human habitation. And I must applaud Dennis Connors and the Lowell Housing Authority. From what I understand, the buildings that they're building, the housing that they're constructing is fabulous, fabulous. And we've taken people who were housed in one small section of the city, and now they can enjoy the entire city, and people can enjoy this new development. And it was a great vote, and the Lowell delegation deserves a lot of credit for their leadership.
Thank you. Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wear many hats as it relates to this particular project. Our bank is actually one of the banks that is involved in the loan pool. We're actually administering the loan pool, and I also serve as the president of the Lowell Development Financial Corporation. So for those reasons, I've been advised by Assistant Solicitor Fenton that I should vote present this amendment this evening. But again, as Councilor Caulfield has mentioned, as Assistant City Manager Matt Coggins has stated, this is a very good project for the city of Lowell, and one that we certainly will see through to fruition.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercia?
Mr. Fenton is looking at you. You don't only supposed to go president, you're supposed to say nothing. Never ask.
Thank
Only
you,
look for
thank you,
forgiveness.
Attorney Mercia.
Move approval of this plan.
Okay. Motion approved by Councilor Armin Mercia, second by Councilor Elliott. Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Present.
Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 present.
The next item is a vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expend a grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs through the Merrimack Valley Nutrition Program in the amount of $15,000. This amount will be utilized to partially fund the purchasing of food needed to continue the operation of the weekly lunch program for senior citizens at the senior center. Now, therefore, be it voted that the city manager be and hereby is authorized in the name of the city of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expend a grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs through the Merrimack Valley Nutrition Program in the amount of $15,000 to be utilized to partially fund the purchasing of food needed to continue the operation of the weekly lunch program for senior citizens at the senior center. Be it further voted that the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell be and hereby is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary in connection with said grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs through the Merrimack Valley Nutrition Program, including the expenditure thereof. Second reading by title, a vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expend a grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs through the Merrimack Valley Nutrition Program in the amount of $15,000 to be utilized to partially fund the purchasing of food needed to contain the operation of weekly lunch program, needed to continue the operation of the weekly lunch program for the senior citizens at the senior center. Any questions? Roll call.
Move approval.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next item is a ordinance amendment and ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, with respect to Appendix A thereof, entitled Lowell Zoning Ordinance, by extending the TMU zoning district to include the area of 550, 570 Bridge Street in Lowell. Is there a motion to amend the, to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Caulfield? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is approved. Second reading by title, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, with respect to Appendix A thereof, entitled Lowell Zoning Ordinance, by extending the existing TMU zoning district to include the area of 550 through 570 Bridge Street in Lowell. This matter gets referred to the Planning Board for report and recommendation by statute. Motion to so refer by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The matter is referred to the Planning Board. Next item is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, as amended by amending Chapter 11, Article 1 and 2, with respect to fees, licenses, and permits. And there's a motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Any opposed? The full reading is waived.
I thought maybe, Mr. Mayor, you could have read every page so that we would know exactly what's going up and down.
Well, it goes on for some 30 pages. This matter gets referred to a public hearing on November 21st. I believe, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wouldn't it be prudent if we had the Finance Subcommittee meet on this issue and go over each increase, each line item?
Yes.
And bring back a full report for next Tuesday?
I think that's...
You can still schedule the...
Yeah, I think that's wise, Councilor.
Right.
Councilor
Yeah.
Broderick? You gonna say
I
the
was
same
going to
thing?
second that. I think that's a
Okay.
good idea.
Okay, Councilor Elliott?
Well, I agree, but, and I'm happy to have that meeting, but the subcommittee cannot take official positions. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
I believe that's correct, but I don't believe there's any prohibition,
I-
at least airing, for going through item by item, which
Okay.
which fees are going to go up, which are going to stay the same.
No, I agree, and I think that we should get a full discussion on what each fee is going to raise, because I don't support some of them, and some of them I think that we are far behind, and so I think that makes sense. I won't make any comments at the meeting, but I think that makes some sense, and it gives a good discussion, because there are quite a few fees that are going to go up.
Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. When's the public hearing?
The 21st.
21st.
Because I think there's already several subcommittees scheduled between now and Tuesday, so it may not be. I thought the motion was to bring a report next Tuesday. I don't know whether you can meet by then, but as long as there's time before the public hearing, there shouldn't be.
We have
an
actually
issue.
2 weeks before the public hearings.
Right.
Okay.
I'll see what subcommittee meetings are scheduled and try to make it work for members and subcommittee members.
Okay. Councilor Armin Mercia.
Just through you to the solicitor's office, if we do not refer this to a public hearing yet, simply because it's going to be reviewed by the subcommittee, then the subcommittee could bring in recommendations to the manager for a final ordinance to be sent to a public hearing. Is that right? If we have a public hearing scheduled for this, we're pretty well stuck with this without comment. So if we
Mr.
just
Solicitor?
defer, am I right?
Then we're in this.
I don't think so.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. You're correct, Councilor, with respect to the fact that if it's not set for a public hearing, but just referred to the Finance Subcommittee for a report, then in turn you could come back with recommendations and so forth.
My concern is that if we do set the public hearing, we're very limited as to what we can do with this before a public hearing. And I know that there are a number of councilors that have a number of questions, recommendations, suggestions, which would be, I think, prohibited for them to take that action if there's a public hearing already scheduled. That's my only concern.
Okay, so what's the wish of the body here? Is there, Councilor Caulfield?
Well, I think it makes some sense, Mr. Mayor, to to have a discussion on these rather than, and some of them could be substantial if there's not support. I guess I defer to you or the solicitor. If we did decide to omit or not support some of them, would they be substantive? And we'd have to go out for a re-advertisement anyway. The only other option would be try to schedule something between now and Tuesday, which I'm happy to do, and I think we can even as before. I know Council Milanazo has Council Donahue has one. We have one Monday night. You have one Tuesday. I suppose we could go earlier on Tuesday if that would work.
I think
there's one for the auditor
this
on Tuesday also, the 14th.
there needs to be a meeting held soon, but I don't.
Right.
I think we need to refer to a public hearing by the next council meeting. We're
Okay.
going to run into deadlines for setting the tax rate.
Okay. Well, I'd suggest that we find a time for a finance subcommittee meeting, bring it in next Tuesday and set a public hearing, if there's no objection.
I think that's the best way to proceed based on what I hear is going to be questioned.
Even if it's earlier during the day, I'm happy to leave work early and meet with, although I think all members of the council would like to be there, so.
Okay, so motion is by Councilor Caulfield to refer this matter to the Finance Subcommittee for a report back by the next meeting.
Right.
That's seconded by Councilor Broderick.
Right.
All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? So this matter will be reported back by the Finance Subcommittee next Tuesday, and then we'll set the public hearing date
You got
next
it.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Okay? Okay, there is a request from the city manager to suspend the rules to take up the matter of the Lowell Mission Church.
Move suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor of suspending the rules for this purpose, say aye. Any opposed? Rules are suspended. The matter to be considered is a loan order for the Lowell Mission Church land acquisition to borrow $1,100,000 for the purpose of financing acquisition of land owned by the Lowell Mission Church at a site for the reconstruction of the University Avenue Bridge, including all costs incidental and related thereto, is hereby ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell by a 2/3 vote as follows. ordered that the sum of $1,100,000 is appropriated for the purpose of financing the acquisition by purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise of the land and buildings owned by the Lowell Mission Church at 211 Pawtucket Street as a site for the construction of the University Avenue Bridge, including all costs incidental and related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, is authorized to borrow $1,100,000 and issue bonds or notes therefore under General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other enabling authority, that the city manager is authorized to take any action necessary to carry out the project, and that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify any and all of the bonds under General Laws, Chapter 44A, and to provide such information and execute such documents as such board may require for these purposes. Second reading by title, a loan order concerning the Lowell Mission Church land acquisition to borrow $1,100,000 for the purpose of financing the acquisition of land owned by the Lowell Mission Church as a site for the reconstruction of the University Avenue Bridge, including all costs incidental and related thereto. Mr. Manager? I'm sorry, Councilor Mercia?
Mr. Mayor, are we setting a public hearing for this particular issue?
This matter will also be referred to a public hearing on November 21st.
Okay.
I shouldn't say also, there are no other public hearings yet, so this matter gets referred to a public hearing November 21st.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Motion to so refer
Yes.
by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Armin Mercia. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The matter is referred to a public hearing on November 21st.
Mr. Mayor, just for the benefit of the people who are watching, this Mission Church is the former CMAC building on Pawtucket Street.
Correct. Okay. I believe that brings us to subcommittee reports. We have any subcommittee reports? Councilor Elliott.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm sorry, I think we're at the point of the meeting for subcommittee reports.
The Finance Subcommittee met this evening, right before this meeting, and it was televised, so I won't go through the entire meeting, but it was a continuation of a meeting that was held, meetings that have been held on closing the fiscal gap that exists, approximately $4.9 million. The manager did bring in recommendations that included fee increases, budget reductions, and levy increase, which would be a tax increase. We went through a full discussion of it. There was no action taken. There was a lot of information that was given. I will refer to you, Mr. Manager, because it is your report, but we will meet, well, as I mentioned, we're going to meet on the fee increases, fee structures, because that is part of your plan to close that budget gap. But essentially, there is new growth, and the manager will go through this, but there is new growth that is included in the budget. We had additional state aid, and that's the good news. The bad news is that we had overestimated local receipts. Available funds were overestimated. Free cash was overestimated by $2.5 million, and that left us with a gap. On the expenditure side, manager proposed a 1% reduction for this fiscal year, which will essentially equate to 2% over the annual basis. Unfortunately, we're halfway through the fiscal year, and I think that's what we need to keep in mind the most, that we're in November. We're not in June. We're not in July. We're not starting the fiscal year. So the impact of these can only be essentially half of what we can realize. We did realize savings on the elimination of health insurance for volunteer boards. Again, $380 over an annual basis, but considering we're halfway through the fiscal year, we're looking at $200,000. We had additional savings from the Regional Voc Tech School, $197,000. There was a debt service omission of $200,000 that we had to put back in. And of course, the snow and ice deficit that we were made aware of in the last budget, but it was not factored into the budget itself, and I think the plan was to raise it on the recap sheet, but it still has an impact on our budget and needs to be included up front, and I agree, not at the end. So, Mr. Manager, I think I've recapped the meeting. We will meet again. No action was taken. There was discussion about the stabilization fund, which is different from free cash. Just for people at home, we'll try to describe this as easily as we can. Stabilization is a fund that was required, that we set up by the Financial Control Board back in '93 to maintain a certain percentage of our receipts, of our revenue, aside for emergency basis. That's required from now until the end of time. The requirement is for $2.5 million. There's approximately $4 million as we sit here today. The manager would like to keep that. Members of the council would like him to take another look at it to see if some of that can be put against the budget. It is a one-time revenue source, but we will revisit that issue. I think that's it, Mr. Manager. I don't know if my colleagues have other comments. I think the viewers at home probably had a chance to watch the entire meeting, so I don't want to deliberate on the entire meeting, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a report of progress. We will meet again before coming in with votes that have to be taken to straighten out this budget and set a tax rate.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Mayor, I think that Councilor Elliott did a very good job in summarizing the report that I made earlier. I mean, basically, the problem is that going through the budget, in very rough terms, revenues were overestimated by $5.5 million, and the costs to the city were underestimated by $2 million, basically creating a $7.5 million problem that needs to be solved. And the proposal that I've brought forth tries to look at some alternative. We've looked at a number of areas where we can make some reductions in items like the elimination of health insurance for volunteer boards, the reduction of the vocational school assessment, looking at a 1% reduction in discretionary budgets of the various departments. But as I tried to point out during the subcommittee meeting, you know, we can certainly go back and we're going to try to, we have reports from the various departments as to what a 1% reduction means for them. We're going to go back and we're going to compile that information and bring that back to the council and to the subcommittee. But as I tried to point out, in terms of our operations, you know, certainly each week when we meet, we hear the various needs of the departments in the area of public safety, in terms of inspections, in terms of our treasurer's office, and in our infrastructure. And there's, at every meeting, we certainly recognize that there are increased demands for services that the citizens of Lowell expect. On the looking at our reserves, we can certainly take a look at those, but I caution the council that it would almost guarantee that we'd be looking at another bond downgrade next year, which is only going to cost us money in the long run with increased interest costs for our borrowing, as we do quite a bit of borrowing each year for the CSO project, for a variety of capital improvements. Even to this very night, we're already looking at a couple $1 million of increased borrowing. You know, if you're going to be increasing that interest rate by an eighth or a quarter of a %, you're going to pay that money out in one way or another. To have $4 million on a $290 million budget is not very, does not indicate very strong reserves. And so I certainly caution the council on that, but we'll come back with a formal recommendation on that as well. And we're anxious to work with the subcommittee on trying to close this budget gap to ensure that the services are retained and that the tax impact is minimized. I would point out that one of the areas that I did point out, and we talked about at the last council meeting, is doing something with increasing the exemptions for many of our senior citizens in the city that would find this tax increase to be burdensome. That will provide actually a $250 increase in the exemption, and as I said, during the subcommittee meeting, we did point out that the tax increase that we're talking about here is roughly $200 for the average taxpayer in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager. There were a couple items also that were mentioned. One by the mayor, that the manager come back with a report on those deficits that were required by DOR to carry forward, and what is the net effect on our available funds from last fiscal year, essentially what was disallowed. And secondly, Councilor Donahue had asked for a report impact on what would happen, what would be the net effect if we did not vote the 1.6 in fee increases and the $4 million increase in the levy. And what would be the effect on the city budget, personnel, layoffs, et cetera. Just those two other items. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Getting back to the advisory board reserve account, there's $4 million in that account, where the city has to keep $2.5 million in that account. I know that. So there's room for leverage there, the $1.5 million. $1.5 million would take 18 cents of the tax rate. And it would, you indicated, Mr. Manager, the tax rate would be 50 cents. Suleiman told me it's 12 cents per thousand, so it's roughly 8, so there's room for leverage there, room to okay.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercier?
I just have a question. Will the city council get another shot at this budget where it's being changed so much from the time we've approved it? Is there going to be an opportunity to, I know that we can't increase the budget, but we sure can cut it. But we've already done that. But there's been so many changes since we've done that. Will we get another crack at that budget?
Well, the plan we have is actually to bring forward what we're talking about, and I'm not sure exactly how this mechanism is going to work entirely. We're still working out the details, but what we're actually talking about is bringing back in, asking you to rescind basically the budget that was approved,
okay,
and voting a new budget.
Okay, now on that new budget, that would require another public hearing?
I believe so.
So
time is of the...
what I'm suggesting is time is of the essence here, because if we're going to rescind the budget and then get a new one, we have to advertise it, we have to have a public hearing, and then the council will have an opportunity to cut further if that's what's required. And so we really have to move pretty quickly on all this stuff, especially if it has to be done.
Well, and that's where the fee increases come into play here as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott.
Can I thank you, Mr. Mayor? Can I suggest that at the next Finance Subcommittee, Mr. Manager, you bring that recommendation if that is your intent, so we send the revised budget to a public hearing, and as well as the fee structure, that we'll be killing two birds with one stone without, further delaying, setting this tax rate.
We will we'll work with the law department on the process that needs to be followed here.
I had one more question. Where are we with the 06 audit? Because without that, I apologize, I meant to ask you at the subcommittee meeting. Without that, we don't get a free cash certification, tax-free cap, et cetera, from DOR.
I know that the Songus Arena has provided, the Arena Commission has provided a copy of their audit now to the auditor, so they should be wrapping up, and that should be, I believe we're shooting for the mid-November, so that should be done by next week. The audit should be in our hands and able to be transmitted to the Department of Revenue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. Excuse me, if we're going to rescind, I assume that means we can't amend the budget? We have to rescind the whole thing? We can't amend?
For clarity purposes, we were looking at a rescission as an option, but again, I think I want to work with the law department on what the best process is, whether it's to rescind it or whether it's to amend it.
Because we could do the tax levy as a vote and amend, maybe?
We need to do all that in the first couple weeks of December.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. This may seem like a foolish question, but we don't have any free cash, right? So, I mean, I know we want the state to certify our free cash, but we don't think we have anything to certify,
in
right?
effect, Councilor, you're correct. In effect, right now, we don't have any free cash because nothing's been certified. The city used all of its free cash last year. And so we need to get the audit done. The process is we need to get the audit done in the hands of the Department of Revenue along with the balance sheet so that they approve the free cash number that we think they will approve. Before we get that, we can't put that $500,000 into the budget.
Okay. So And we have to do that so we can get a tax rate so we can send out the first bill.
That's correct.
Otherwise, we don't have any cash flow, and we're back in the soup again. You know, I look forward to the debate. You know, one of the concerns I have is that we sat here in June, we did as many cuts as we thought we could without severely disturbing services and personnel and all that in the city. I don't think you're going to find a whole lot more fat in these budgets, but, you know, certainly I give credit to those who will try and do that. My concern, and I know we're all looking for a way to, you know, come up with the money. My concern, whether it be the stabilization account or any one-time thing, is that unless you cut the budget by that amount, we're still going to be a year from now, or not even a year from now, June, we're going to be looking for that money because we don't have it then so we're going to have to cut it then or raise taxes then. So that's all I'm looking for, is a clear picture. If we do that, then are we just postponing the inevitable? That's what, you know, I mean, if we can come up with a solution that we can use the money, whether it's $1 million or whatever, from, for example, the stabilization account, we can use it now, but are we then just postponing $1 million problem in terms of a shortfall unless we come up with a cut in light of salary and everything going up? So, you know, it just seems that we've got to, you know, come up with the money or cut jobs. I don't know any other way around it.
Hey, Councilor, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's exactly the situation we have. All we're doing by using one-time money is putting off the inevitable, and in addition to that, sending a very bad message to the financial community that we depend upon, and to the state. I mean, the state. This is what brings the state into communities to impose very strong restrictions on their finances.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I discussed this at the subcommittee meeting. We do have that $1.9 million from Linergia in the general fund. We can't exclude that. That's in the general fund. Am I right?
Council, I think we've gone over this.
I know, but it's in the general fund. It's money we do have.
It's money that's in the general fund that came in representing payments that, if I could, the best way perhaps to put this is that was money that should have come in prior years.
Right.
If it had come in those prior years, it would have folded into our free cash in those years. By taking it now and putting it in...
I'm not talking about taking it. I'm saying...
it's
we
there.
It's there.
It's there, but you can't build the budget around it.
Right, but we have $1.9 million in the general fund. That we're not destitute as far as the cupboard is bare. And we do have $700,000 in free cash once DOR...
Well, once it's approved, but it hasn't been approved yet. We've already counted on using $500,000 of that. And it's not $700,000, it's $650,000.
Well, okay.
And as far as the 1.9 goes, you're right. It is there. It came in.
Right.
Just as, you know, the first 2 quarters of tax bills came in. We have cash that's come in. But we also have, I would venture to guess, some revenues, some projections of miscellaneous receipts that have not come in and will not come in. Very good possibility of that. And that will eat into that $1.9 million, conceivably. That's why you don't do anything with that until you get completely through the fiscal year. So I'm not saying we're destitute. We have cash, but in terms of how we're going to end fiscal year 07, we have to ensure that the proper spending and revenue decisions are made, you know, as we move forward.
Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I didn't have an opportunity to attend the Finance Committee, and I'm a little bit concerned when we talk about maybe rescinding our vote, and I'm wondering if there are any other number of ways to perhaps just submit a supplementary budget. We voted it, we relied on it, it wasn't there, and you're doing a great job rototiller and turning things over and finding it, and I appreciate that. Can you continue to just manage and make the changes that Armin Mercier, Council Mercier alluded to, without having to rescind the budget? And my concern, and you just mentioned it, was just catching the attention of the Department of Revenue, the financial homes, brokerage firms, and the bond rating that looks at a community that doesn't have any money and is now rescinding an old vote, as opposed to doing the best we can, submitting a supplementary budget that we can just vote on, because time is of the essence, and then perhaps putting together the best forecast you can for next year.
Mr. Manager.
Counselor, I think I agree with your points, and again, I think what I want to do is, our goal was to try to clean up this mess. And we thought that one of the ideas we thought of was a total rescission to start fresh and knowing exactly what our revenues are and putting the money in, and basically the budget would be the same with modifications. But we wanted to be able to clarify it. Certainly, as if we want the process that's going to be the easiest to get us through this situation. And a supplemental budget, just a series of budget amendments, is, if that's an option that makes the most sense, and that's what we'll do. But I agree with you on.
And it may not. I just, time is of the essence, the public hearings, and having to go through the entire budget, a budget that Councilor Donahue alluded to is very lean. I have all the confidence in you and your administration, and if a series of amendments that we can work through at a finance subcommittee can cut some time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, it's come up now, so I guess I'll address it as well, as the spending of using free cash in the 1.9 and tapping into the 4.0 in reserves. And a couple, I guess, questions that I would have, maybe Mr. Moses can come up with these numbers, is if we're likely to take a hit on our bond rating, an interest rate may go up 1/8 or 1/4%. Could you give us a projection of what we're scheduled to be borrowing? Because I understand we're going to be going out to bond for CSO money. Will it affect that? And what will it cost? We have the arena, the takings down the street. And what will be the net effect of the interest rate going up 1/4%? Because, we're talking about a real cost that's going to be, basically delaying. We're looking at a 6-month delay, because these are recurring bills. If you win a scratch ticket, you don't pay your mortgage with it, or increase your mortgage because you have an extra $500. I understand that we want to try and minimize the tax impact, but the reality is that we have bills that we can't pay now, and to use everything we have before we raise it again, it may not be the most sound fiscal policy. So I would appreciate if we could get some of those some of those numbers. It may help put it in context of what it's really going to mean to us annually, and what is it, if we're looking at raising in 6 months, then I guess that's a decision we'll have to make. But I think that recurring costs and throwing money at it now, hurting ourselves in the long run, and our stability is probably not the best idea. Thank you.
We'll get that for you, Councilor.
Thank you. Councilor Riamercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the Finance Subcommittee was very informative, and we did learn that the tax rate for residential taxpayers would go up probably 50 cents more on the tax rate per thousand, and what did we say, 90 cents per thousand for commercial. And I know that Councilor Mercia tried to think of a way to maybe break that down, and I know we don't want to raise taxes. Here we are, raising taxes, raising fees. Mr. Manager, I'm nervous. You don't put your name on a ballot. I do, and I'm trying to help out at the best that I can. So I'm thinking, when we listen to Councilor Caulfield and he says $1.9 million for Leonard Gere, and you're saying that, no, you can't do it, the state says this, I can only think way back, and mayors will understand this, when you're dealing with the school committee and the school side, and you know that we have to fulfill our obligation in the maintenance of effort, and you know that way back when you could have deducted what the city pays out for portable classrooms, and it was only good for 3 years, and after that, we can't use that to offset our maintenance of effort cost. It changes all the time. What we thought might have been something that we could take off, we can't. I understand where you're coming from. It's just that we just want to try to grasp at anything to try to help out. I'm thinking about the stabilization account, or whatever you would call supplemental reserve, whatever that word is, that the state came in years ago and said, you have to maintain $2.5 million there. And I know we're up to 4, and I don't know why we can't take at least $1.5 million out of that and offset that 50 cents to maybe 25 cents, or some sort of figure that we don't burden the taxpayers even further. I mean, we have to come up with something greater than what we're doing right now, and I support Councilor Mercier's plan to do that. If you could give us some sort of information, if the state would allow us to do that, unlike the 1.9 from Leonard Gia that says, oh, you can only use a certain portion of that. And tonight we're going to be listening to Councilor Caulfield's motion that I wholeheartedly support. But there has to be other ways that are legally doable that the state will allow us to do. I know your hands are tied. The state says, yeah, you could have used it 2 years ago, but you can't use it now. And, you know, there's many rules here that you have to follow. If you deal in taxes, you know what you are allowed this year may not be allowed next year. So it's like a balancing act. And so I sympathize with you, but you can understand our frustration, and Councilor Caulfield's as well, that we're trying to put together something so that it's not so burdensome. You know, cost of living does go up, but we have to live within our means, and this was a shock to all of us. We're going to have to try to do that. Next budget that you put together is going to be, you know, tightening the belt, and we're going to have to do it. I know that.
Well, Council, if I may, I appreciate everything you're saying, and I fully support, you know, your viewpoint on trying to reduce the impact and how difficult it is for everyone. But I think you said it yourself. We have to learn to live within our means. And what I'm seeing is we're not willing to live within our means. We're trying to use, as Councilor Broderick put it, our winnings from from a lottery ticket to pay for our mortgage. You know, we buy the bigger house because we won one scratch ticket. If the money's not going to be there, we have to make the tough decisions. So we either have to look at the tax levy, or we have to cut services. And I know from, you know, the months that I've been here with you that all of you would like to see an enhancement of the services. I don't think anyone wants to see the services of the city reduced. You know, and so I think that's really the reality of where we are. We do have to live within our means and recognize that. But I think you make great points there.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. I just want to briefly make a statement. We can't forget why we're having this discussion every week, and I appreciate the effort you've made, Mr. Manager, and the CFO. Days after you came on board, you were notified by the state that we're on a watch list, that we are one of 11 communities in the state that were on this watch list because we had financial irregularities and problems. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this, not because anyone's trying to cast, you know, aspersions on anybody or anything. It's simply because we were told by the state, you guys have a problem and you better address it. Now, the council made it very clear to you, keep us apprised on everything you know about this, because it is a big problem and we have to straighten it out. So you walked into a bigger challenge than perhaps you knew or we knew. All we're trying to do is come up with solutions at this point. And the solutions are not easy when you're halfway through a fiscal year. They're not easy even if we knew at the beginning of the budget year. But so, and let me just ask, assuming we can get this straightened out, get the state to sign off or certify free cash, whatever there is, are we off the watch list, do you expect, by DOR?
We haven't had discussions specifically on that. I felt we needed to get through this before we could do that. I would venture to guess that we will not be entirely off their radar screen. The state and the bond rating agencies and the financial community have very serious concerns about the city of Lowell's finances.
All right, well, what concerns me is that we're on a list with some very needy communities, Springfield being one of them, or Springfield's in a whole different category, but it doesn't make me feel good that that's where we've been put, and especially for what we've been talking about, our bond rating, and how much it's going to cost us to borrow monies. We have school projects that we're looking at, we have, a whole lot of things, and I think all of this boils down to we have to have the information so that we can make intelligent decisions about what we can do and what we can't do. I think we've made decisions in this past year not knowing what our situation was that maybe would have gone differently. That's neither here nor there, but we are where we are. So if we can get this straightened out by the end of December, I'm only hoping that the state can see the efforts, and that we are on the right track to a healthy fiscal scenario, and that we are not put on some watch list on any permanent basis. I don't think it helps us at all to be there.
Thank you. Councilor Milonasso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot has been said this evening at the regular meeting and obviously at the subcommittee meeting, but I believe that we find ourselves where we are today because of, during the last 2 or 3 fiscal years, we actually were operating as if it was a balancing act, and we were borrowing against future revenues. We were doing things that we really, in hindsight, should not have been doing, and I think it's going to be difficult to try to break that mindset and get beyond that, and I think that we're going to have to bite the bullet, and again, no one likes to raise taxes, no one likes to raise fees, but at the same time, we have to deal with reality and try to move the city forward. If we're going to get back to the point where we want 5% of our budget in free cash, again, we're not going to get there overnight, but it's certainly a goal that we can set over the next 2 or 3 fiscal years. So, again, I'm looking forward to the next finance subcommittee meeting and trying to get to the point where we're going to be able to move the budget forward.
Okay. Well, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief. But I see I see, a lot of the focus now on the stabilization fund, and I see that fund similar to the focus that used to be placed on free cash. That this is the answer to our problems. Here's a pot of money that we can go to without raising taxes, and I agree. I agree we should use it on the back end, not on the front end. Don't count on it until you have it. And use it for a one-time payback, if you will. If you want to offset the taxes, set the rate and say, this is money that we have left over, which is what most, if not all the communities do. They use it to offset it after, knowing that we've paid all our bills, knowing that we've balanced our budget. And yes, let's help taxpayers. This is how we can do it. And we should. That's the process we should be, instead of plugging a number in the budget and say, look, we know we're going to get this money, and we're not. And we're finally I sound like a broken record. I've said it before we had this problem. Now we see the stabilization. Then we don't have anything left, and that's why the state requires a certain percentage. Do we have to, can we draw down to 2.5? Yes, we can, but we don't know what the next fiscal year is going to bring. We have a bridge issue of a 1.1 million that we're bringing in tonight. We get the arena problem. We have a parking garage that we still don't know where the money is coming from. Now, do I advocate raising the taxes? No, I don't. Are we going to have to raise it somewhat? Yes. Tell the people that. Does it have to be 200? No, I don't think so. Because I think that when we sat here in June, we had budget deliberations. Now, some members that are advocating tapping the stabilization didn't want to vote to make cuts, and I made motion after motion to cut, and some didn't get support, some yes. So that's where, I agree. I don't think we're living within our means. You can raise taxes, but we're going to still be confronted with the same issues next year, because we have some financial issues that still are not addressed in this budget. So do we have lean budgets? Maybe we do. But people at home have lean budgets, and they can't go out and get some of the things that they want because they don't have the money. Maybe we can't. Now, does that mean that we need to lay off police, fire, essential, necessary things? No, but maybe we have to look at other areas. What exactly are those? maybe we'll have to go through the budget again and make some tough decisions that we probably don't want to. Because I think Councilman Linazzo said, maybe we've all said, next year's going to be coming around in 3 or 4 months, and raising taxes is just not the answer, in my opinion. We have too many outstanding issues. We approved the budget based upon revenues that were not tracked, that was not presented to us, and we voted on it, but we can only vote on the information that was presented. So we can look to the stabilization as an answer to say, you know, we don't want to raise taxes, and quite frankly, some people can't. Absolutely, we all agree. That's why the manager's looking at those people on fixed income, increase the exemption. That is going to help. Cutting the budget is where we got to go. I mean, we can look for all the revenues in the world, but if you don't want to make cuts, that's part of the solution.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The subcommittee report is accepted. We have Councilor Donahue, I'm sorry. Oh, another subcommittee report. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. The subcommittee on the railroad issues met last Thursday evening. As the council is aware, there was another incident out in South Lowell not too many weeks ago with a railroad car that poses health and safety risks to not just the neighborhood but the community at large. As a result of that, the issue was referred to the railroad subcommittee. We had a meeting. Congressman Meehan attended the meeting and actually made a thorough presentation to the subcommittee. I've provided my colleagues who were not present with materials that Congressman Meehan gave us on that evening. Let me just try and put it in a nutshell as to where we stand on this issue. Going back to the first serious incident in 2002 when clearly very toxic gases leaked from a railroad car here in Lowell. Following that incident, there was a great amount of concern. The city was involved, the congressman's office was involved. We walked the site with the neighborhood. The congressman had asked as did other areas of the country, asked for the General Accounting Office to do an investigation and a report. That report was done. And the point of the report was to come up with a plan or recommendations to avoid these issues on the railroads where very hazardous materials are traveling through our communities. Not only do they travel through, but they sometimes are parked in the backyards of homes for much greater than 2 days, which is the allowed time under the current railroad regulations. But more importantly, the first responders, the public safety people who have to respond if there's a problem of a leak in a railroad car, don't even know what gas or hazardous material they're walking into. It could be lethal for the first responders. And the railroads are not required currently to tell local officials, police, fire, what they're parking in their communities. These regulations are clearly outdated in this day of terrorism. And this GAO report basically made specific recommendations. The report was done, it was completed, and that report was furnished by the Congressman's office. Among the recommendations, hazardous materials, there are very strict hazardous material regulations if someone's traveling on the highways and byways, but not the railroads. Very strict regulations if someone's going to have a plant in a community and what they can and can't do, but not the railroads. So the recommendation was to create a plan for railway security, to create a plan for railroad safety, and most importantly, to utilize the Department of Homeland Security to intervene in these issues. Currently, we were told that there's a voluntary plan called Operation Response, whereby railroads can voluntarily cooperate and tell communities about hazardous materials that they're going to be transporting through their community or parking in their communities. And shockingly, we were told 90% of the railroads in the country cooperate with this voluntary operation response. But guess what? Not the railroad that goes through Lowell. Formerly known as Guilford, now known as Pan Am, does not cooperate with Operation Response. They have been completely uncooperative, not just with the city of Lowell, but with the congressman's office, with the Senator Kennedy's office. But that said, Congressman Meehan had specific recommendations. Senator Kennedy has offered to work with the city of Lowell on this issue. Some of the things that we have to do is increase the pressure on the company to at least voluntarily respond, increase the pressure on the federal government to utilize the tools that they currently have, and that's through Homeland Security intervening with the Department of Transportation. Apparently trying to embarrass the railroad is completely useless because they can't be embarrassed. They refuse to be cooperative. The gentleman who runs Guilford, now known as Pan Am in this area, his name is Mr. Fink, and he has been completely uncooperative and to the point we're told of being rude about what the railroad just won't do. There have been a number of other incidents, railroad cars off the tracks and so forth. So the good news, the railroad laws favor the railroads, not the communities. But the good news is there's some ray of hope, and that ray of hope is now because of the era of terrorism and domestic terrorism and so forth, there may be another way around this issue, and that is through the Department of Homeland Security. As I said, Congressman Meehan and Senator Kennedy's office have both pledged to work with us. And so a motion was made by the mayor to request you, Mr. Manager, to follow up with the Congressman's office and Senator Kennedy's office. And the suggestion was maybe even building a coalition with other cities or towns that are likewise affected by this problem with Guilford. And then we would have a follow-up meeting. Another matter that bears mentioning, and that has to do with something brought up by the neighborhood group, is whether or not there is an evacuation plan for the neighborhood in the event there is another serious leak. There may be, but it's not something that the neighborhood widely knows, and so I think that's something that the city can deal with, and we should deal with that so that everybody in the neighborhood knows what to do. We have reverse 911. We have a lot of those types of tools available to us. But I think it's helpful to maybe at a neighborhood meeting or something, or even through Lowell Telecommunications, just give some type of brief or an overview to those neighbors as to what would happen in the case of a disaster or a spill or something. So that was one. The other matter, what was urged on neighbors, is to report incidents. So, for instance, if there's a train that's parked behind their house and it's beyond the 48-hour rule, report it. If it seems to be there's unattended or off the track, as happened some months back, report the incidents, report them to the local police so we have documentation. A lot of what the congressman was hearing were anecdotal things from the neighborhood, but there may not be documentation with police reports, and those are the kinds of things we're going to need to persuade the federal government that there is indeed an issue, there is a problem, and it requires their intervention with this railroad. The danger could be significant. And one of the things we don't want to do is be sitting here and say, we've had two serious incidents in Lowell over the past 4 years, less than 4. And we don't want to have the third one be 3 strikes, you're out, and that is the one that we say we should have done something. And it's very limited what we can do, but I think there are some things we can do. And so that was the point of the subcommittee. Again, I want to thank Congressman Meehan's office and his staff for providing us not only with the GAO report, but also other information. He filed a bill in this past Congress. He's going to refile it. He intends to refile in the next Congress that would attempt to put some teeth or legislation that would require more from the railroads. And so we'll see after tonight. Maybe that will have more success of more chance of success in the next Congress. So that's the report, and we expect to get back together once there's maybe been something further to talk about as to the follow-up with the congressman and the senator's offices. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adopt the report recommendation of the subcommittee by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That report is adopted. Councilor Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not actually a subcommittee report, but it is a request of the city manager to report, if he would, on the article that was in tonight's paper about the judicial center and being cited, I guess, now over to Hamilton Canal District. I don't know if this is something that you want to comment on now or wait till next Tuesday, because we are having an economic development subcommittee meeting next Tuesday prior to the full council meeting, but it was reported, and there is a memo in the packet from you, Mr. Manager, regarding that the meeting took place with DCAM, I think it was yesterday.
Yes.
Mr. Manager, sure.
If I could just respond, there was a, just to give the council an oral report on this, there were concerns that DCAM had regarding the Davidson Street site, given the flooding that's taken place there. And so they were, word came back to us that they were going back to the drawing board, and we had some discussions with the delegation regarding other options because we wanted to move this project to move forward. As a result of those discussions, there was talk of putting it in the Hamilton Canal District, which we went out, we did a walking tour of the site to look at it for the Judicial Center as well as the Nanotech Center. As a result of that, we came up with an idea that there is a corner of the Hamilton Canal site right across the street from the garage where there is a structure currently that is in very bad condition, and if the historic board had in the national park would work with us on it, we think that we could do something with that site, and that would of course have some benefits for the garage as well as jumpstart the Hamilton Canal project. Importantly, this particular project, while it will be holding a state facility, it will be privately owned. And so that we believe that there will be some tax benefits to the community as well. So we just floated that out there as an idea and working with the delegation. DPD did some rough sketches of what something like that could look like. Has some very attractive possibilities with the rear of the property fronting on the canal. We brought those ideas forward to DCAM yesterday. They were very interested, given the the conditions down at Davidson Street and the need for parking, and they're going to investigate it further. We think there's some real possibilities there. I think that a meeting with either the Economic Development Subcommittee or the Judicial Center Subcommittee, perhaps a joint meeting, would make sense, and we can have DPD give you some of those ideas.
Terrific. I know that we have scheduled the Economic Development Subcommittee for next week, but we can also do a joint meeting thereafter.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
I was just going to say, I think Councilor Ramirez and I filed a motion about inviting the delegation and all the interested parties in to see what, because there was an article 2 or 3 weeks ago about whether they were going to reconsider Davidson Street after the flooding. Right. So joint meeting may make sense. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. Now, putting it over by the garage, that still leaves the other end open, potentially for the Nanotechnology Center?
We're still discussing with the university the possibilities of moving the Nanotech Center over there as well, yes.
So we could get jump start on both ends?
Right.
Excellent, thank you.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager. I was elated with the news. I think this is a good plan, and this the Davidson Street lot will still be in the hands of the city for revenue. B, the new courthouse on Jackson Street is only going to attract other development. And C, how important is that garage? Very important. And I wonder if we weren't building the garage, had we, the courthouse would have been located there. So I like your plan, and I support you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am thrilled about the Judicial Center being up at the Hamilton area there, because the flooding kind of left me wondering why we would actually do that. So that was good news. And since we're in the area of the jam plan, you know that we had a very tragic with the smoke and the fire that was on Middlesex Street. But I want you to know that I saw firsthand the effort to evacuate the charter school children over to the Songus Arena, led by T.J. McCarthy, who did a tremendous job, along with the police department, Captain Taylor, John Dakota, the bus transportation head czar over there, and Jay Lang, and all the people that were instrumental in making the kids comfortable and safe. And that was commendable to see all that happening. Thank you very much. But if I could, since we're in subcommittee reports, I know that I could do this at the very last minute, but I know you'll be in a hurry to get out. And so if I could bring in this request from Middlesex Community College to make an announcement for a free public forum on identity theft. That's very important. Middlesex Community College, in partnership with the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce and the Lowell Plan, announce a public forum on identity theft, which will be next Tuesday, November 14th. Sign-up time is like 12:30, and it'll start sharply at 1 to 3:30 in the afternoon at the Federal Building at the Assembly Room on the first floor at 50 Kearney Square. This was made possible by a generous contribution from the Butler Bank. It allows them to offer this forum free to the public. And just to tell you that identity theft is one of the fastest growing crimes in America. The crime causes loss of money, damage to your credit rating, and sometimes even fraudulent changes to the victim's medical records. No one is immune, but senior citizens are commonly targets. This forum is designed with the special needs of senior citizens, businesses, and banks in mind. There will be a group of experts that will make a presentation and help people to understand what identity theft is and what forms it takes and how to avoid becoming a victim. And if I could just tell you that incoming Middlesex District Attorney Jerry Leone will appear there and be a speaker right from the start. The United States Secret Service will be there, the Mass Attorney General's Office, the Postal Inspection Service, the Police Department Criminal Bureau, Bankers Association, and the State Police. So if you want to call Middlesex Community College and just talk to the registration office, just to have a space available for you in case space is limited. So I think this is an important announcement to make, and Terrence Down asked me if I would do that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to...
Okay, so that's next Tuesday, the 14th at 12:30,
Right.
Middlesex Community College Federal Building,
Thank
right?
you. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, just following up on the councilor's comments regarding the fire today. We did have a bad fire today out on Middlesex Street, and it was a very difficult fire for the fire department. They did a great job in knocking that down. I just wanted to echo your comments regarding the evacuation.
Yes.
We had 800 students at the charter school right nearby, and it really was a team effort. Assistant Manager McCarthy did a great job in spearheading it and
Yes, he did.
keeping us in touch with what was going on. But we had a lot of, obviously, the police and fire participated, Public Works, National Park Service Police, UMass Police, Mass State Police, the school department, their bus provider, and the Songus Arena staff. Everyone really came
That's right.
together to make it work, and I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to mention that.
And
tonight.
Craig Gates was there like they were all his children. It was just unbelievable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. We have two reports from the wire inspector concerning a pole location on Westchester Street and Conduit and Fletcher Street. Motion to adopt the accompanying orders by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The orders are adopted. We have a petition for a pole location from National Grid on Industrial Ave, and another one on Fletcher Street, and one on Smith Street. Those matters are referred to a public hearing on November 21st. So moved by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The matters are referred to a public hearing on November 21st. We have a one claim for property damage. This matter is referred to the Law Department. So moved by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Claim is referred to the Law Department. Under the motions, the first motion by Councilor Elliott, City Council requests the city manager to investigate municipal option of joining the group insurance group. Second by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor. As the motion indicates, Mr. Manager, the Group Insurance Commission, I'm sure you're familiar with it. I think it's worthy of looking into. 265 members on the state level, communities across the Commonwealth. I know the city of Springfield just joined in an effort to, pool resources and reduce health care costs that are in, double-digit increases this year. So, just an option for you to look into. I know there's a little bit of legwork that goes into it by setting up a committee and meeting with the unions naturally, but we have to do something about health insurance, and this is one option that the state allows us to participate in that group insurance commission. It does require approval legislation. So that's the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Approximately a year, maybe a year and a half ago, Mr. Manager, I filed a similar motion, and Kathy Tinney did a very exhaustive investigation into the insurance. And many of the communities in Greater Lowell don't offer their employees the master medical, it's HMO Blue. And the report back from the other communities is it wouldn't be cost effective for them, for us to join them, because the rates would increase. But Kathy Tinney has that full report, and she did a great job researching it.
Mr. Manager.
Sorry, I have seen that report, and I think Councilor Elliott's point is that is a good one. That health insurance is a problem that's affecting every organization, particularly municipalities. And I know that we're looking at a number of different. I had a meeting this past week with our insurance consultant, Cooking Company, as well as Kathy Tierney and Mr. Moses, as well as some people from the school department. So we're trying to pull together a number of people to look at the various options that we have out there. It's an area that we have to bring under control, and master medical is an extremely expensive program.
Right.
And
I believe it's $4 million a year more to the city of Lowell than if everyone was on HMO Blue.
Right. By law, you have to offer an indemnity plan. We do offer a PPO to some of our groups, and we're exploring what options are available with that, and we'll be working with the unions on that.
Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I look forward to that report. I support Rodney, Councilor Elliott's motion. We've been talking all night about living within our means, and so maybe it's time to really explore all options. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the... Councilor Elliott.
Just a word of note, those communities that have joined the Group Insurance Commission save in the average between 5 and 7% on the health insurance costs. So last year in the budget, we had a $16.3 million expense. So, doing the math is a substantial savings to looking into and trying to save, even if it's 5% of 16 million, is a significant amount of money. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Request the position of city auditor. Request that the city council further advertise the position of city auditor in various publications and websites. Mm-hmm. Second by Councilor Caulfield. We do have somebody registered to speak, I believe.
We do.
Mr. Clerk.
Arthur Gallagher.
I know that I thought you were going to present the motion first, but my question basically is, along with this advertising in various publications, I'm assuming that the whole timeline for the to the processing of getting a new auditor is going to be pushed out into the future. Just penciling it out, I can't see a new, this is going along with a new motion, another motion later in the agenda. I can't see this happening until sometime in March. Do you see in your timeline an auditor coming on board anytime sooner than that?
Mr. Gallagher, it's really not set up to be a question and answer.
Okay,
If you could just give us all your questions, and Councilor
what
Elliott
I'm
will
saying
speak
is
on the
right now
motion.
that according to the previous timeline, the applications were supposed to be in for the city auditor November 9th, which is 2 days from now. Now, if you're turning around and going to re-advertise this position, if that's your intent, you can't. If you're going to put new advertisements out, I'm assuming that you're re-advertising the position, that you still have to go. You're going to have to move the deadline for at least another month. Interviews are going to take about a month, and then hiring, and then to the person that you're hiring is going to at least have to be given a month's notice for to terminate their employment with whoever they currently have. So I'm seeing a 4 or 5 month, bring it out to March before a new auditor can be on board. Can you comment on this, Mr. Elliott?
Thank
Sure. My motion was simple. It really was just to put our job posting on a couple of websites, web links, particularly the Mass Municipal Auditors and Accountants Association. It wasn't to extend any timeline. Regrettably, I didn't think about it sooner because I would have brought the motion in, but I thought it was important enough to at least bring it to the body. I mean, they can put it on the website tomorrow. This is where your auditors and accountants primarily will go to look for jobs. I know it was posted in the Beacon, and I think it's another good publication. But I probably should have said the MMAAA, which Mass Municipal Auditors and Accountants, because that's where we're going to get the people that know Munis and meet the job requirements that we set forth in our job posting. So the motion wasn't, and it wasn't and I don't think I worded it that way to expand or change the search. We know the auditor is leaving the 17th, so I don't think that that wasn't my intent anyway. You can go tomorrow, zip it right online, and I think that'll get a little bit more exposure by people that visit this particular website probably frequently. So
Thank you.
That's the motion.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that as long as we're not going to expand the timeline, push it out, especially with the recent resignation, that I think that'd be a great idea. In fact, if there's some type of email list, we can send out an email to any members. That might be a great idea as well. But the reality is, it gives them 2 days to get it in, which with email and things like that, we've gotten others. In fact, I think we have 19 applications so far. So I look forward to getting it wrapped up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. Well, we did get, several applications and certainly some with Munis experience and so forth, and so that's the discussion for down the road. But through you to the city clerk, is it my understanding that HR did send out notice to all auditors in the state?
Yeah, I was informed by the Human Relations Office that they did a mass mailing to the Massachusetts City Auditors, Controllers, whatever the initials are there, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
So
they did a mass mailing to them, and that was probably about 7 or 8 days ago.
all right. So, I mean, certainly it can't hurt to be as inclusive as possible, as long as we're not getting a different timetable. We stay on the same time track because, there has been a bit of a change since we started the process. We're not looking at a February date, we're looking at a November date in terms of the auditor leaving. And so, but I'm not saying we'd rush to fill. I think we just look at what we have, and so I certainly have no objection if that's the intent of the motion, just be as inclusive and inform, get it out as much as we can.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercier.
As long as this doesn't change the timeline, I support it, but we really got to move fairly quickly with this. So putting some more ads out there some way, somehow, that doesn't change the deadline is fine with me.
Okay, anything further on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Next motion by Councilor Caulfield, City Council, request the City Council vote to rescind its previous action taken on April 4, 2006 by allocating wastewater treatment settlement received from the towns of Dracut and Tewksbury in the amount of $1.1 million to the Sewer Enterprise Fund. Also, that the council further vote to transfer from the Sewer Enterprise Fund the amount reflected in fiscal 2007 of $275,000 to the general fund. Second by Councilor Rita Mercier, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just to bring a little history to this $1.1 million, Manager Cox and Solicitor O'Connor notified the council that a 30-year-old settlement with Tewksbury and Dragut had been settled at $1.1 million. I, at the time, thought it would be prudent to at least transfer $275,000 of that money into the general fund to stabilize or help with a tax increase. That motion was brought in on April 4th, 2006, and that motion passed 6-3 to transfer the $1.1 million into the Wastewater Enterprise Fund. I want to be perfectly clear. I want the odor problem addressed as much as anyone else. It is horrendous. It has gone on too long. But it's not going to be addressed until next year. The study or the engineering reports haven't even come back yet. My argument is the $275,000 that's going to be transferred this year, Mr. Manager, can be used to stabilize any tax increase. For a good hour and a half, we all talked about how we're going to find the necessary funds to address the deficit. I don't care if you have to transfer the other $825,000 next year, the year after, and the year after into that fund. But we need that money now. For close to 25 years, Mr. Manager, the taxpayers of this city subsidized that facility. All the nonprofits weren't paying their fair share. The taxpayer of this city subsidized that facility. If the budget was $5 million, we only brought in $4 million. So it went on the backs of the taxpayers. Now we have created, we had a rate increase, we have an enterprise fund, and everyone is paying their fair share. That $1.1 million 30-year-old settlement is really the taxpayers' money of this city. I'm not going to belabor the issue. You can vote my motion up or down. It doesn't matter. But this $275,000, this council, this manager can use to put into the general fund, to put into free cash, a stabilized account, whatever you want to call it, to help with the deficit and keep a tax increase down to a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. I think this gets back to the same issue we went on and on about an hour ago, for about an hour. You know, the problem still needs to be fixed. We're still going to have a bill for it next year. So whether we use the money now to offset, we're still borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Now, the problem I see, and it's been brought up by several other councilors, is that unless there's a plan, Mr. Manager, for you to come back in 6 months to cut the $275 that we use now, we don't have the money. We're still going to have the bill. So we're postponing the inevitable, and we're going to shortchange ourselves on fixing the odor problem. You know, we don't have the report yet. It could be $200,000. It could be $1.2 million. I don't know. I just don't see the point in throwing good money after bad money and then being on the short end again. If you have a comprehensive plan that you can come in and show how we're going to cut and be able to reduce our budget, reduce our bills for next year, so that when this what we think is revenue is used, that makes sense. But if we don't, we're just basically throwing money out there so we don't take the hit because our names are on the ballot. I don't think it's makes sound fiscal policy. So that was my position earlier. It's the same on this particular item. But again, I look forward to whatever your plan is, and if you have any reports on the projected costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. $9,500,000 to fix a smell that travels into Belvedere? I don't understand why it costs so much. We're talking about $275,000 that is going into that account. It's like a drop in the bucket. Could we at least get an answer if we can use it or we can't? I want to go on the record and say I want to do everything that I can help to alleviate the burden for our taxpayers, our ratepayers. So I support this. I say fix the smell and let's go on with it. I don't know, with $9.5 million to fix a smell, I don't get it.
Councilor Donahue.
Well, first of all, we don't have $9 million to fix the smell. And this is something that, when we sat here in April, we've had the problem for at least all the years I've sat here, and no one's ever fixed it. We've asked to have it fixed. There have been many motions. We've been given a lot of explanations and no action. A lot of talk, no action is basically what's happened. The arguments were made then that we have all this money in there. Well, we have all the CSO, that has to get paid for. My understanding is that money, as well as other operations of the plant, that money is claimed. That is not extra money. If it's extra money, God bless us, because we don't have a financial problem. But my understanding is it's not extra money. And when the vote happened in April to, here's a one-time settlement, fix a one-time problem, put it over there, we still don't know what it's going to cost to fix it. We're still waiting for that. Now, if someone can tell me there's an extra few $100,000 that you don't need, then maybe I consider it. But I don't know that as I sit here today. It could be $5 million to fix it. I don't know. But I think we have to be responsible and get it done. So I'm not changing my vote. If someone can show me that it can get fixed, and here's what it will cost, and here's your extra money, then that's fine. But I don't believe that we have that information today. I mean, Mr. Manager, I don't know that you have, we keep hearing about all this $9 million sitting over there like it's, the Taj Mahal of money. Can you give us an explanation of the money, what's your understanding of the money that is there and what it's for?
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I think there are several points here. The first is there is money in that enterprise fund that's there, and its intention under the statute is to remain there to pay for certain capital expenses that come with the system. We do have the odor control issue that we're trying to work through. It's my understanding that the vote that was taken back in the spring, when that money was known to be coming in, was that this money was to be directed towards that odor control. In fact, because of that, we moved forward with a study, it's my understanding, and so that money has already been allocated, and which creates some legal issues with regards to rescinding the vote at this time. That based upon the advice of counsel, that raises some issues as to whether, because we've moved forward with the specific project, whether we can rescind it. On another note, though, the statute clearly provides that any money that comes in to that enterprise fund is to be deposited there and used for the activities of that enterprise fund. It's sewer-related money that goes into that enterprise or is supposed to go into that enterprise fund to be used for sewer-related purposes. So there are issues regarding legality of trying to divert that money to any place other than the enterprise fund. The third point is that the sewer project or the wastewater plant does have a number of capital needs that have to be taken care of that go hand in hand with the odor mitigation. And the CSO project is an extremely expensive project. I did have a meeting last week with Mark Young and the engineers, and I know that they're going to be meeting with the CSO subcommittee, in which they have very serious concerns as to whether there's adequate money to do the project that they have on the books. So to divert the money, even though it is just a small amount of money, doesn't seem to make a lot of, doesn't seem to be the best action for the council to take, in addition to the fact that it isn't really legal to be diverting it outside of the enterprise fund, since the enterprise fund has been established.
Well, and I think arguments have been made in the past that if the city had done subsidies, the city can pay itself back or so forth. But putting that aside, I guess it comes down to, is there extra money or there isn't extra money? You know, I mean, and like I said, unless someone can point to me that we have extra uncommitted money over there, then we are just borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And we have already made commitments on CSO, and we have, at least I thought when we took a vote and we moved forward and we had a study and we made a commitment that we're going to get this odor problem solved, I thought we meant it, and I thought that the city's going to follow through. So I'm not willing to say, take the money away, because we all know that we have plenty of money. I don't know that we have plenty of money. I don't believe we do have plenty of money to take care of it. So for that reason, you know, I mean, we got to start getting facts before us before we make decisions. We can't just be pulling it out of thin air. And so that's all, you know, we've commissioned a study. Let's get it back. Let's have the meeting with the CSO committee. Let's find out what the concerns are, why we may be coming up short over there. We have to get the numbers.
Mr. Manager?
Councilor, I agree entirely, and I asked Mark Young to put together some projections along those lines. That, let's know how much the odor mitigation project is going to cost. Let's know how much the CSO project is going to cost us, as well as the other capital improvements. He's putting together a 5 to 10 year capital plan so that we'll know what the costs are going to be, what the debt service associated with that's going to be, what the projected revenues are going to be, to know exactly how much money we have there. And I think you're correct that you can take money back out to pay yourself with Department of Revenue approval, and they've given us that approval. They'd allow us to take out $2.5 million a year ago, 1.1 this year, and 1.1 next year, and that's intended to make the city whole for that. Otherwise, it's supposed to stay in the enterprise fund. But I agree that we need to know what the numbers are before we start taking any other. We need to know what the numbers are to take any action on any issue here in the city.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez?
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I'm not sure what to say at this point. Councilor Caulfield and Councilor Mercier have some very good points about the taxpayers. But the election was last year. You ran to make the tough decisions, and it's now the time to make them. We hired a manager that's willing to make them. You've been told over and over a number of times tonight, you actually said you wanted to live within your means, and we keep looking for little funds here and there to put a Band-Aid approach on something that we're going to have to find money for next year. So I think it's just time to make the tough vote and worry about the election next year. Thank you.
Councilor Mercier?
First of all, I would support this wholeheartedly, because every penny counts that you can get into the general fund. However, listening to the manager, and I'm sure that Councilor Caulfield will not know this, and I just want to make sure that I understand it, this would not be legal. Is that my understanding of your report?
That's my understanding, Councilor, based upon the advice of counsel, and I would defer to the city solicitor.
Well, I don't doubt it, but I'm sure that if that's the case, that I'm sure that Councilor Caulfield will not be pursuing this if this is not a legal action. But I'll defer it to him.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, has all the money come in from Tewksbury and Dracut?
I believe it's being paid off over a period of...
What's that?
I believe it's being paid off over a couple of years, 3 years.
No. Over a 4-year period. Right. Has the money come in this year from Tewksbury and Dracut?
Tewksbury, I know. Yes, I believe it has come in. I know Tewksbury. I spoke with the town manager over in Tewksbury, and he was...
Has it been transferred into that fund? I don't think it has.
Well, Councilor, if it hasn't gone into that fund, that's where it's supposed to go. There isn't supposed to be an action taken to put it into that fund. obviously I'm making wild assumptions, assuming that people are doing what they're supposed to do by law. But if the money comes in, it's supposed to go into the enterprise fund.
I don't know.
By law, that's where it's supposed to go.
Could you come in with a report?
I will certainly do that. It is.
Councilor
I've
Elliott.
been advised that it is going into the enterprise
It
fund.
is going.
Yes.
But it's not in there yet.
No, but it's going.
That's where it's...
It's in transit.
We will follow up to see if it came in and it was put there. That's where it's supposed to be put by law. By law and by vote of even of the council. So if it's not being done, then there's some bigger problems we have.
Because I know 125,000 has come in. I don't know if the other 150,000 has come in. So I don't even know if it's transferred in there.
I will follow up on that, Councilor.
How did you,
Yeah,
can we
how
find out
does
how you
Councilor
knew?
Caulfield know that?
Well,
Right. Okay.
Councilor Donahue, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
through you, Mr. Mayor, could I ask the speaker to my right where the information came from? Because we don't have that. We don't know that
Information.
as to the amount of money that's come in and where it's gone.
I don't know where it's gone. I know $125,000 is brought into the city. I
But
believe.
where did you get that
Yeah,
information?
where'd you get that information? That's the question.
What did I get?
Yeah, where?
You call the auditor. He can tell you information if you call him.
The auditor gave you that information?
Yes.
I'd like to clarify
Councilor
something.
Armin
Let's be fair about here, okay? He was told that $125,000 was paid to the city.
Like,
He's just questioning whether or not it went into the enterprise fund. The manager made it clear that's exactly where it's supposed to be. I'm assuming that's where it is.
I mean,
I mean,
that
let's
was
not make
probably
a
the
mount-
first
I'm-
payment, right? There were payments and
whatever-
installments.
Whatever the number is, I'm sure it's in there, because like the manager said, if it isn't, we got more serious problems than looking to transfer some money out. I would like to move the substitution, that this be delayed until we get the report from the manager about that enterprise fund.
I'll second that.
Motion in
Motion.
substitution to delay
To
this.
delay this request until the manager provides the council with
On
the
that.
information that Councilor Eileen Dunny was looking
All
for.
right, so moved by Councilor Armin Mercia, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Donahue.
Okay, I think we need some information from the
Yep.
solicitor, because if we have acted in reliance on that vote, I don't think you can rescind. I don't think you can rescind a vote if you've already acted in reliance. And this is a months-old vote. Now, you may be talking about a different vote if you find out there's a pot of money, but rescinding a vote that we've already begun down the path on, I mean, through you to the solicitor, can you do that?
Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you. No, you're correct, Counselor, in what you say. Ordinarily, any vote can be rescinded, except if the position of the city has changed, the money has been committed or expended with respect to a particular action, then in turn, that it's not proper to be rescinded.
Well, I think what we should do is we should take a vote on this motion. I mean, and if we find out there's money, then it's a different motion. But I don't think it's a rescission. You know, if you find out there's extra money, then the manager could bring in a transfer if that were the case, but.
Mr. Mayor, I was with the understanding the money had not been transferred into that fund. That's my position.
All right, well, right now, we have the substitute motion.
I might want to withdraw the substitute, because based on what we're hearing tonight, maybe Councilor Caulfield will probably just withdraw that motion, based on the information he received. Or,
I'll withdraw the motion.
All right.
okay.
The only intent of the motion was to try to find another $275,000 to stabilize any tax increase. That was the gist of the motion.
All right. Councilor Mercia, your motion's withdrawn. Councilor Caulfield, your motion's withdrawn.
Next item.
We'll get a report from the manager as
Yes.
to where this stands.
I'd like to know if that's been transferred
Okay.
into that fund.
Councilor Elliott. I'm sorry, Mr. Manager.
If I may, just a bit of confusion in terms of whether it's in that fund. Council, I'm not sure. When the money comes in, it sits in the treasurer's, it comes to the treasurer's office, and he is supposed to put it into the statutorily appropriate fund. That's by Massachusetts law and also by vote of this council. If he hasn't done that, frankly, I'm baffled as to where you think the money is. It's either in that fund or it's waiting to go into that fund. There's no choice as to
It's fine, fine.
Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I filed a motion to put this money towards the odor problem because there's an odor problem. We can go through all these financial gyrations, if you will, robbing Peter to pay Paul, the shell game. That seems to have gotten us into the financial mess that we're in now. Instead of taking the tough votes, take the tough votes during budget time to cut the budget, or take the tough vote to increase taxes. You can't double talk. Just tell people straight up, I'm either going to vote to raise taxes or I'm willing to make some choices to cut the budgets. That stench over on that side of the city in I live in Pawtuckaville, so I'm not going to benefit from it, but you know what? I wouldn't want to live next to it. And when I went door to door many years ago, people asked me, can you do something about it? And there wasn't any money. There's a chance now with money that hasn't been spoken for, that's specifically for the wastewater treatment plant. We know there's a problem. There always will, and there will be. So, you know, enough of telling people one thing and then, well, we can't do it. There's 1,001 excuses. But what I do know is not a penny has been put into that, to improving the infrastructure alone. Take a tour. I've been there several months ago, last April. It's not alarming. The tunnels are leaking. The screw pumps are 27 years old. We invested money into the water treatment plant because it was failing. The same thing is going to happen. So we can look and see that there's a $9.5 million balance in that fund. But what I do know is I attended a Pawtuckaville Citizens Council meeting last week. There's a $7 million project that is in the process of being completed that we all committed to, that's coming out of the Sewer Enterprise Fund. There's a $65 million CSO problem that is coming out of the Sewer Enterprise Fund. We raised the fees to take care of that. Now, I don't know what other financial gyrations members want to think we're going to come up with that money, but there's no easy answers. The answers are in our expenditures. The only thing I would ask, Mr. Manager, do we have a preliminary or do we have a debt schedule from the Water Abatement Pollution Control, SRF, as to what our payments are, what our obligations are going to be in the next 25 to 30 years? And bear in mind, this is only phase one. Phase one of the $65 million that we have to pay. We have a consent decree with EPA for phase two and then phase three. So we can rob Peter to pay Paul for $275, but I think that we should commit to solving a major problem for people in Belvedere and Centerville. I can only remember, you know, back then, say 15 years ago, when there was a major odor problem in the Highland section, and the Highlands residents wanted it solved, and we spent the money to do it, and we did it in a timely manner. We took the bond out. So people need to keep that in mind, that the odor problem has existed, and we owe it to the people that live there. It's a nuisance. I'm sure sometimes it's an embarrassment to the people who live there, and you know, it's a public health issue. So I'm not going to support any substitute. We finally have a settlement coming in that's not spoken for. Either vote for it. Either you want to help the people or you don't. But don't try to, speak out of both sides of the mouth and say, well, I'm for the taxpayers, yet I want to fix the problem, because there's no easy answer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There's no
Right,
motion.
the motions are withdrawn, so let's move on to the next motion, which is by Councilor Caulfield. The City Council requests the City Manager report on the status of the Law Enforcement Trust Fund audit. Second by Councilor Ramirez. Councilor Caulfield.
I think the motion speaks for itself, Mr. Mayor, and I'm looking forward to some report, Mr. Manager, pertaining to this issue.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Donahue. City Council requests the City Manager report on the pros and cons of a police superintendent and civil service. Second by Councilor Rita Mercia. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, we have a report on our desk tonight. This has to do with Superintendent Davis leaving, going to Boston, and as we discussed last week, you're beginning the process looking toward interim and then also a permanent replacement. In your report tonight, you indicate that your recommendation would be to remove the position of superintendent from civil service. My motion is on the same subject. Actually, what I'm asking for is, and I think some of the reasons are stated in this report, there may be reasons not to do it as well, and I guess I would like to refer my motion to the Public Safety Subcommittee for further discussion and exploration. This is an important position, as I said, I think the last time. I think next to the manager, the superintendent of police can be the next important position in the city. So much depends on public safety. And we have had in Lowell the history of the superintendent's position having civil service protection. Not every community has that, and so in advance of the subcommittee, if you can, if your office can get that information for us, I'd like to know how many communities have it and how many don't, and particularly cities, I guess, may be more appropriate. I can envision both sides. I can understand both sides of the argument, but we're at a junction where we can make a change or attempt to make a change, and the process has to be laid out. I guess what we need to know is have as much information to find out, is that the best thing to do? What's in the best interest of the city, number one. Certainly the department is going to be important. How does it impact, the chief and the department and the chief's ability to lead the department? And what other options are there? For example, if the council were to pursue this route, then you can see that the chief would need, or the superintendent needs, some kind of security, and whether that's by way of contract. And I know in your report tonight you allude to the fact that the legislature has made this position one that a contract can be given. Because the chief would be the only one in the department then who doesn't have civil service protection, and all of the people under his or her command would have civil service protection. So that could be a balance that may not be equal. So anyway, I think it's a very interesting issue. I think it's one that we really should, as a council, fully discuss and understand. And so any information that you can get to us, but I think it should go to the subcommittee and then back to the full council. And then lastly, the timetable, I'm happy to schedule the subcommittee just as soon as the information can be provided. So, I don't think we're under the, I don't want to say under the gun. These things don't.
No pun intended.
But anyway, no pun intended. But I don't think we're under the gun in terms of that. But if we can, as soon as we get the information, then I'd schedule the subcommittee so that we can report back to the full council on this. But I think it's something that really bears some further study.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercier?
Yeah, first of all, I agree it should go to the subcommittee for further discussion. I think it's a great idea personally as we speak and based on what we received tonight. But there are still a lot of questions that need to be answered about it. For instance, is our present superintendent protected in his present job before he leaves under civil service, or was he not part of civil service? Eddie Davis.
He's under civil service.
He is under civil service.
Yes.
In here, it suggests that if this gets adopted, the next superintendent of police would not be under civil service.
That's correct.
Including any acting or temporary chief. According to Section 3 here, it says, the section should not impair the civil service status of any person holding the position now, but he is in civil service, so it's not applicable to him. But it could be applicable to anybody who gets named acting or temporary. Or am I reading this wrong?
Yeah, Council, that was we went, Solicitor's Office and I went round on that one a little bit today. And this is just a draft version of this, obviously, to put before you. But the intent of that is that the person holding the more permanent title of superintendent of police would not be covered by civil service.
Right.
And acting or temporary would retain their civil service status.
Okay. And it's also my understanding that if anybody does, if this happens, a person could take a leave of absence from a civil service status, because it's my understanding that Chief Davis is going back to the civil service status as a patrolman for a few days so he can maintain some sort of civil service status. Not sure if that's so, but I think people have a right to take a leave of absence from the civil service status and take another job without losing their benefits or without losing their seniority. So
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that the acting or the interim one, okay, would not lose that civil service status.
That's correct.
But I'm looking forward to further debate, because this could also lead, in my opinion, for some very innovative thinking as it relates to a commissioner for public safety. Not right now, but if there's a vacancy that occurs in the fire department, for instance, then there could be some further discussion on whether or not it's time for that. I don't believe that's the case right now, but it's worthy of pursuing to see if that's in the best interest of the city of Lowell. So I'm looking forward to the further debate.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Council Mercier and Council Donahue. I appreciate the innovation, and I need to be careful that I premise my remarks so that I don't impose on your rights as a manager. But if it is going to be taken out of state control and turned over to local control, I don't know. I'd like to have some more say as a counselor, perhaps, because not necessarily you, but I'm just concerned that too much power may be vested in the position of the manager itself, and it's such an important position. So I can't wait to have the debate, but it's worrisome to me about concentrating that much power in one individual for such a high-level, important position that's already governed by the state. And I believe you're doing it all for the right reason. I appreciate the narrative, and it makes some sense, but I do get nervous that that position may get to be too much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick? You have some? I'm sorry. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, in this communication that we did receive, you said that you've begun consideration of the selection process that I will use in appointing a permanent superintendent, and you listed one of the desired qualifications when considering the use of outsiders in providing applicant review. What does that mean?
Well, it's not unusual in a community to pull together a team of people that could serve as a sounding board for a selection committee, if you will. Distinguished citizens of the community, or
you don't mean outsiders outside of the city of Lowell? Outsiders?
No, well, actually, you know, that occurs from time to time as well. That you'll have a chief of police from another community, or someone from the district attorney's office, or the attorney general's office that might be willing to serve in some capacity. They wouldn't be making the choice; they would simply be making a recommendation.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion is to refer the matter to the Public Safety Subcommittee. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Next motion by Councilor Broderick. The request the City Council examine the need for an interim or contract city auditor, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding that, Mr. Manager, you are the authority to appoint an interim auditor.
That's correct.
And I guess this was by way of discussion in terms of the auditor has certain duties and things that he has to perform. I know he has assistants and he has a staff. Is there going to be a need for contracting out? I know the tax recap sheet, Schedule A, Schedule 19, W-2s and 1099s will be coming up. I don't know when we're going to have someone on board, but you know, is this something that they're going to be able to handle, or are we going to be looking at contracting out for these specific duties or services? And it's something probably we should be aware of in terms of transferring money.
Councilor, we're reviewing that right now. We've had discussions with the assistant, and the assistant statutorily has the power to come in and serve as acting. or fill in. I'm looking at that. I'm also looking at some other options for contracting out those services to ensure. There's a couple of individuals or firms that I'm aware of that can provide that service to us to more complicated aspects of the position.
So, in other words, we shouldn't miss a beat, though.
No, we shouldn't miss a beat, and I'll keep the council apprised of everything that happens.
No.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? Motion's approved. I think that concludes the agenda. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Armin Mercia, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Meeting stands adjourned.
I know. You're going to be busy.